Sekiro might just be the pinnacle of the FromSoft combat experience. A beautiful ballet of sword swipes and sweeps, fronted by a protagonist with 99 dex and minus 99 charisma.
What?
As you slash, deflect, stomp, Mikiri, and combo your way to victory. Meh. How about we don't do any of that instead? In other words, can you beat Sekiro with thrust attacks only? Sure thing, Baron, of course, that sounds easy enough. Well, not quite. Let me explain. Firstly, what is a thrust attack? Press the right bumper and you'll do a normal sword swipe, but hold it in and you'll charge up a thrust attack instead. You can perform both static and running thrust attacks, but these both take a lot longer than a normal attack to wind up, so generally, in the heat of battle against mobile speedy bosses, they're not that useful. Perfect. But that's not all. The only real rule I set myself for this run is that I have to beat the game whilst only directly damaging enemies using thrust attacks. But what constitutes damage exactly? Enemies in Sekiro have a health bar and a posture bar. Either one can be depleted or maxed out as appropriate to trigger a death blow. Therefore, they both count as damage. So, what I really mean is, can I only do either HP or posture damage to enemies using thrust attacks? Which means deflecting is out the window, because it does posture damage. And if deflecting's not allowed, then neither is blocking, because I might accidentally deflect instead. Best to avoid that button altogether. Mikiris? Not in this house, my son. Combat arts? Psh, for absolute amateurs. Prosthetics? Does this look like a monster movie? Actually, hold that thought, because there are a couple that still come in useful. Oh, yeah, and I also gave myself another rule. No stealth death blows except to use puppeteer ninjutsu for quest purposes. You can't just go cheesing bosses and expect your audience to be impressed. Basically, what I'm saying is, can you beat Sekiro by playing it like it's Dark Souls 2 but every enemy has had a quadruple espresso? Join me on a journey to find out and beat all the classic bosses like Slightly Sus Emo Singer, Angry Steak, One Direction, Token Gimmick Bot. Okay, small problem here. Divine Dragon requires you to use lightning reversals to beat him. So, the only route that can be truly beaten by my rules is the Shura one. But of course, we all know that the best bosses are down the other route. No, not you. So, I would back up my save before Al, do Shura, roll it back, and take the other path, but beat Divine Dragon normally and carry on for the other endings. 'Cause you're all really here to see this happen. Well. Wake the fuck up, Shinobi. We've got Ashina to burn. Feeling unexpectedly motivated, I left my hole, met my master Kuro, who was being held captive literally round the corner. Try harder, Wolf, please. Tested my mettle against the first mini-boss by completely ignoring him, took the escape route, had my first meeting with this douche canoe, gave my hand a vacation from the rest of my body, and woke up next to a strange man looking like a woodshop class Robocop. Waifu time, and then it was onward to, actually play the game. No rush though. First, I snuck past everyone in the outskirts to test my pickup lines on an old lady.
My son.
Alright, Soler. She gave me a bell to ring, proving that Sekiro really is the Dark Souls of Shinobi Guitar Hero games. I met the peddler, and it was time to fight the ogre. Not that one. WrestleMania was pretty straightforward. Just bait out an attack, run away to outspace, and run back in to punish at the end. And, although I got a bit sloppy and had my first res of the run, this was still an easy first try for a prayer bead. After grabbing the gourd seed above, I did my best to ignore more anonymous enemies, helped a snake to put its contact lenses in, scoured the area for goodies, and hit up the next idol. I wanted another gourd seed before taking on Gyoubu, as well as some more practice playing the game this way. So I decided to backtrack and kill General Big Sword Guy Dude number 1. Let's take a sec here to talk about how combat plays out. Because of how slow thrust attacks are and how few opportunities you get to use them without deflecting, posture damage would mostly not be a thing for this run. So I would have to kill bosses by slowly whittling down their HP. And if that means baiting out one specific attack to punish and avoiding everything else, then so be it. Because the pain train might be about to leave the station, but for now I'd rather take the no fuss bus instead. I would have time to diversify my strats later, but for now, the slow and steady route netted me another gourd seed, and I was ready for BoJack Horseman.
My name is...
Shut up, nobody cares. This fight was annoying because Gyoubu can catch up to you faster than you can run away, and actually dodging through his attacks is not easy. In case you weren't aware, dodging in Sekiro has far fewer iframes than the Soulsborne games. 'Cause you're meant to deflect? Duh. After 10 tries, I'd started to get a feel for what did and didn't work. And here's how it went. Music please? Oh.
Sekiro. That is what I shall name you.
Dildo face. That is what I shall name you. After picking up another gourd seed and prayer bead, I can't believe it's not Ishin told me to take out some rats. I duly obliged, got the text from him as well as another from the sculptor, made small talk with Emma, and chased a rack of barbecued ribs around the arena, poking its butt until it turned turtle and died. Pretty much like the normal Blazing Bull experience, to be honest. With multiple paths now open, it was time for me to fail to commit to any of them. I unlocked the reservoir idol, headed up the rooftops of the castle, grabbed another gourd seed, prayer bead and some free cash, cleaned out some of the local military to free the trader, hit the Sunken Valley idol, went to the dungeon where I bought another prayer bead, and finally reached Senpo, where I met Kataro, grabbed a gourd seed, picked up a couple of pinwheels. See, it's Dark Souls. And then... nope, not touching that. Now that I had the valley, reservoir and temple paths open to me, there was only one obvious route to take. Hirata. Gyoubu might not be a particularly hard boss, but he's an extremely annoying one without parries or stealth death blows to thin out his crowd of groupies quickly. This was a tedious slog of baiting a couple of enemies out, unaliving them, waiting for everyone to de-aggro, and repeat. Gyoubu himself has a deceptively long reach that caught me out, but at least you can call upon your buddy to pull his aggro and allow you plenty of free hits. And even though this got very tense near the end, I pulled the victory out the bag for a prayer bead, grabbed another one from the secret room for my second necklace, and it was time for another boss. If I had £1 for every time I met a boss that was surrounded by annoying enemies I had to take out first, I'd have quite a lot. Luckily, the Shinobi Hunter himself isn't too hard once you figure him out, and you can dodge around a lot of his attacks to the right with the correct timing, leaving him open for a free hit to the back. You can't outpoke me, sunshine. I collected the Mist Raven feathers, asked Dad to borrow the car keys, bought some firecrackers to celebrate, checked in on my girl, collected another prayer bead from Sunken Valley, poked General Longsword Geezer Bloke and General Longsword Matey Pal to death in the same way as their friend earlier by punishing anything I could get behind or abuse the cooldown animation for, and got my hands on the third prayer necklace. What a religious experience. Let's talk about skills quickly, because I have none. The most important thing here is to not unlock Mikiris, but luckily there wasn't anything else I needed on that tree, and so my main focus would be the healing and spirit emblems up, as well as Breath of Life light. We cool? Me and Kotaro were certainly cool, so I gave him a really cool red and white pinwheel, told Anayama to get salty, and sent Kotaro to join him to unlock some new inventory that I would end up not even really needing, so worth it.
You really are a good man.
Now then, son of Owl, shall we dance?
Don't you hate it when you visit your gran and open the cookie tin, but it's just full of throwing knives instead? Come here, Nana, we need to have a word. Luckily, Lady B isn't particularly tricky. Her arena is big enough to outspace and sidestep or jump over most of her repertoire, and she has a lot of easy punishes, like her wire dismounts or her vertical kick. Phase 2 is more annoying just because the length of the fight means she will summon her ghost buddies multiple times, and also her trailing butterflies remove some of your available attack windows. But ultimately this is just more of the same, and after 3 slightly sweaty tries, the butterfly had its wings clipped, I used my dad's sword to cosplay that scene in Alien, and Hirata was done. For now, at least. Out of all the boss fights I was worried about in this run, Armoured Warrior was close to the top. Luckily, thrust attacks on him do posture damage, which is nice, but this was still a pain. At first I tried keeping distance and closing the gap to punish, but more often than not I would end up trapped in a corner with nowhere to go. So I switched to staying close for the most part and dodging through everything except his big combo, which worked a lot better. A quick word on prosthetics too here. Although most of these aren't allowed by my rules, one that is Mist Raven, which can come in handy here if you get cornered in a tight space. It went sorta like this, bada bing bada boom. Who?
You are everything to me, Shinobi of the Divine Air.
What?
With the rest of Senpo open to me, I stole a baby and a book, poked some monks to death for their pocket change to buy another gourd seed, grabbed another one from Sunken Valley, and upgraded my flask. The flashing sword guy in the dojo below Geni would be a nightmare for this run, but luckily you can just skip him by using the ancient art of jumping on air. Oh god, not you again. Genichiro is the first boss on the run so far that throws a bit of everything into the mix. So he's a good example to talk about the different strats required, since his arena isn't that big and he can close gaps very fast. When it comes to avoiding attacks, you've got 3 options. Run, which if you run around your opponent during their attack, can leave you behind them for a free hit. I like to call this the thrust and dust. Dodge through their attack to also give yourself a window, or jump, which can sometimes avoid otherwise unavoidable hits, like this combo. Because thrust attacks are so slow, and once you've committed to one you can't pull out or you'll do a normal attack, invalidating the run, you have to use a reactive playstyle. If the boss is active, focus on avoidance and punishing. If the boss goes passive, do a thrust attack to bait them into action. I mentioned Mist Raven earlier, but there is one other prosthetic I could use. Firecrackers don't do any posture damage to humanoid enemies. And, although I didn't want to become reliant on them, I would keep them equipped for clutch moments. Oh, you want some highlights? What does this look like? A hair salon?
The glory of Ashina.
Don't be fooled by the rocks that I got. I'm still getting from the floor. Used to have a little, now I got a lot. No matter where I go, I know where I came from. Don't be fooled by the rocks that I got. I'm still getting from the floor. Used to have a little, now I got a lot. No matter where I go, I know where I came from.
How many times have you died and come back to life from my...
Sake.
After Genichiro grew a set of plot armour and triple backflipped into outer space, I caught up with my homies, gave Kura the Sakura droplet, met Ishin, nice guy,
I will kill you.
and it was time to return to Senpo. Yep, that's me, looking for some fucks to give. As you'd expect, the monkeys plays out pretty normally. Take out the invisible stalker first, ring the bell to stun the green one and max its posture out, sneaky sneak the orange one, and open the doors to bamboozle the purple one. Easy. I met the Divine Child who gave me the very safe sounding mortal blade and said, "Careful, don't cut yourself on it." Ah, shit. Next up, the Gun Fort, another boss I'd really not been looking forward to. Weird arm centipede Grossface. That's his real name, I promise, no need to check the wiki. Not only is this guy relentless, but you also fight him in a room the size of Andrew Tate's d***, so outspacing him would be impossible. Luckily, he counts as a humanoid enemy, so I could spam firecrackers on him to keep him stunned, and after this poor bastard in Ashina Castle died far more than twice on my quest for some divine confetti, I popped some candy, made my sword look fabulous, threw pop rocks everywhere, and bullied the poor freak to death. This was about as pretty as Steve Buscemi's eyes, but I somehow managed to get the job done after a couple of attempts. Somehow, with the emphasis on the ow. The Twin Apes boss fight can lick my taint. Of course, you can skip this fight by reaching Mibu village before spanking the monkey, beating the ape, by defeating either the Shishimen warrior in the dungeon or the ninja in the well, neither of which would be much fun on this run. But there is another way to skip them all, which I'll show you. First though, an interlude.
You get the rice, then you eat it. Do it at least twice, repeat it. Till the child falls asleep, then you get some more rice. Yeah, we all about to eat, yeah. Then the kid gets sick, so you bring her persimmon. I don't know what to rhyme with that, I'm not eminent. She gives you more rice and then asks you to bring it to Kuro. So you go to the castle to give it, and Kuro's all like, "Wolf, that's so very nice, but how the F don't you know you're supposed to cook rice?" He gave me the rice balls, went back to the kid, but she wasn't in the yard trying to find where she hid. She asked for a book, so I looked for the loot. Then
She told me to go find some serpentine fruit. I descend from the valley, creep up to the cave, and then puppet the monkey to jump past the snake. Let's go! Now you have the viscera, all you have to do is climb up to reach the poison pool, meaning you've skipped the dungeon route completely. The Snake Eyes here might just be my least favourite boss in the game, but if she decides to just stand around in a poison pool all day slowly dying, then I cannot be held responsible. Oops. After making sure to grab the prayer bead here, I progressed through the hidden forest, which wasn't particularly well hidden, and prepared for the hardest boss in the game. Yeah, shut the fuck up. Still gonna buff just to make sure though. I purchased a couple more skills, met the basket guy in Mibu, no idea why they call him that.
I am a basket.
Helped myself to a gourd seed, some anal beads and some edibles, swiped left on Orin and took on Corrupted Monk. This was more tedious than anything, just keeping distance and waiting for the right attacks, although confetti and pocket sand help it to go faster. After dying a couple of times from being impatient, I took down the monk, suddenly learned to swim like it's the Matrix, picked up the stone and returned to the castle to eavesdrop on my mates. She said what? To who? Wow. With my newfound powers of not drowning like a twat, I collected 2 more prayer beads from underwater areas in Mibu and Senpu, bought an umbrella I'd never need, and I was ready to go apeshit. Oh, you too?
As your father, I order you to forsake your master.
Yes, Daddy, whatever you say, Daddy, ooh. Old man Ishin was so close I could almost smell him. He does smell strongly of booze, to be fair. But first, the minor annoyance of thrusting my big sword into Emma repeatedly. Ugh. Initially, I was overly aggressive with my strats, and she did all kinds of nasty things to me in return. I'll leave the details up to your imagination. Then, I discovered the secret tactic of, running around in a circle. As long as you maintain this sort of distance and keep circling, adjusting to bring her back to the centre if needed, you can end up behind her after everything. And the only move you really have to worry about getting caught by is this one. It took me several attempts to understand how to get through this phase cleanly, but Emma just died in my arms tonight. Must have been something I said. And, in true FromSoft final boss tradition, it was time to hurt an old man. Not me, I've been hurt enough. Luckily, Ishin is a massive poser, who just loves to stand still and let you prod him in the back after he's finished an attack. As with Genichiro earlier, be ready to run, dodge or jump if Ishin is on the move. But if he's standing passively, just give him a gentle poke to prompt him into action. Because a lot of his attacks are slow, deliberate sword slashes, you can actually iframe through a fair few without much trouble. Phase 2 might add fire into the mix, but this just gives you even more opportunities to dodge round or through to counter hit him. It still took me around 25 attempts to get a relatively clean victory that I was happy with, but put it all together and this is what you get. Well, there it is. Everyone I ever loved was dead, but I had a great new fiery arm to show for it, and I had beaten Sekiro with thrust attacks only. Sort of. Because this is where the real Sekiro begins. Hey, so, Dad, remember all that shit I said earlier? Yeah, I changed my mind. Also, fuck you. Let's get the obvious thing out of the way here. Zaddy can Mikiri your thrusts, which means the only safe position to attack from is behind, or his flanks at a pinch. Luckily, he's got a number of attacks you can dodge through or around to punish from behind, like his overhead flip or his running slices, which he'll often follow up with dropping a bath bomb. Once you know the spacing and tells for those, it's just a matter of avoiding everything else. Easier said than done in a relatively small arena, when his sword is too big, too thick, too heavy, and too rough. It was more like a large hunk of iron. Oh Jesus, get some new ideas, Miyazaki. After 6 attempts of feeling the big man out and getting treated like wrapping paper in return, I reached phase 2 for the first time, and this is mostly like the first, with the added bonus of poison everywhere, because FromSoft. By now, the rhythm had set in though. I clutched the fight with no heals left, Dad gave me some stick for beating him, and I went to party with my crew. This party's dead. I coerced Emma and the sculptor into giving me the other Hirata bell, hit up the idol there, made the incense with Kuro, and got carried away to Fountainhead Palace by a giant knot that has a metal peepee for lore reasons. Bruh, it's not even that far, I could have just walked. If Corrupted Monk was a mild annoyance, her true form is more like barefoot tap dancing on a carpet of Lego. You can dodge around one of her leaping attacks to punish consistently, and both of these attacks here also leave her open for a counter. But positioning is important. The monk recovers quickly from her animations, so if you're in front of her, or even slightly too far, she will just deflect and instantly respond. Almost everything else just jump over or outspace. This was probably the most tedious fight of the run, and also the second longest. Since you can't get her health down quickly, I had to deal with her spawning in her clones 7 times during phase 2, and all I could really do during that time was play the floor is lava and hop from grapple point to grapple point. Phase 3 brings in the vomiting, because no good night out would be complete without it. But other than that, nothing much changes. And even though I ran out of everything except persistence at the end, I dispatched the nasty bug on the second try, the monk went down, and Fountainhead was mine to explore. Whew. Hold up guys, I'm exhausted. The Sakura Bull was just more running and butt poking, but this time in purple. I dispatched the real hardest boss of the game, grabbed another prayer bead from under the lake, as well as the last gourd seed, and I was ready for the Divine Dragon. Ooh, pretty. Not much else to say here though really, since I just did the fight the intended way. But for a gimmick fight, it sure is beautiful. Also, I'm sure my reward will be... oh, a dead guy. Just what I wanted. Thanks babe. I was one bead short of an amazing climax, so I returned to Hirata for Gyoubu Part 2. But of course the real boss of this fight is this annoying shitbird, who drained my gourd faster than a blow from Mia Khalifa. Still, the drunk himself is pretty easy, even with only 2 flasks left, and I gave myself a well-earned sit down. Do you mind? Jeez. With the holy trinity of bosses in sight, I decided to handle some any other business first, by taking down the ogre inside the castle to obtain Shinobi Medicine rank 3, dealt with the White Snake because nobody needs an 80s metal revival, got some of that Walter White for my troubles, and kited over to the outskirts to bring the pain. Best 21 minutes of my life right there. Time to catch up with Daddy Dearest, I guess. I had stupidly thought that the bigger arena for this fight would make things easier than round 1 in the castle. But I was wrong. The pillars become a massive irritation when relying on running and dodging to avoid his attacks, as they get in the way, as well as breaking lock on at crucial moments. Most of his punishable attacks are the same as the first fight, with the addition of his sliding thrust or his firecrackers, both of which give you a window if you position correctly. However, he has 2 very similar dash and slash attacks that I had trouble distinguishing between. One of them I could consistently dodge through to punish. The other... yeah. It doesn't help that his sword hitbox is so long that you could run away, jump on a flight halfway around the world, and still get clipped by the end of it as you get off the plane. Oh, and, of course, if you're too slow with your punish, this happens. All in all, this took around 30 tries, of which at least the first 15 didn't last longer than a minute. Guy problems, don't shame me, okay? I'd love to say I'd mastered this fight by the end of it, but nope. This is how it went. Bruh, really? You again? Great. At least this would be easier than Al. Yep. Uh-huh. That's the one. Oh yeah, right there. Boy, this took a long time to nail down. Let's talk about My Chemical Sword Dance first. Getting through this phase wasn't necessarily a problem, but getting through it without using too many flasks was a whole other story. The issue is that Geni has a lot of attacks in this phase that can clip you if you're not careful. The best move to bait out is his leaping thrust, which you can sidestep to punish. He will often follow this one up with one of two other combos, during which you can stay close to him to get a second free hit in. If you're even slightly too far away though, he'll treat your face like a pincushion. So you need to be all up in his business. The easiest way to bait the jump is just to keep distance. But Geni is extremely aggressive in this phase, and sometimes just chases you for hours on end. A well-timed thrust can knock him out of it, but if he decides to attack while you're charging up the thrust, you are going to eat his blade for dinner. Get too close, and he might do this unavoidable double slash. And that's before I've even mentioned his bow. The single arrow attack is fine, but the little rapid fire burst is an arse to dodge if you're too close, and the amount of times I took a double shot like my morning coffee was enough to ruin my whole year. Yeah, that's right, you little coward. Go ahead and pull your dead gramps out your shoulder to fight me. No honour. Phase 1 Ishin was straightforward in principle. If he circles around, circle with him, keeping distance, and punish when he's done. If he sheathes his sword, run away to bait out Ashina cross and counter. If he stands still, poke him like a sleeping bear to get a reaction, and be ready to either dodge right to the slash or thrust, or back away if he sheathes his sword. He can still mess you up very fast if you get your spacing wrong here though, but phases 2 and 3 is where shit gets real. You might have seen vids on YouTube or Reddit where people fight Ishin without parries, but usually these involve interrupting his attack chains with your own fast attacks in between the dodges. And with my slow little poke, that just wasn't viable, so most of his big combos were best just avoided. The obvious punish here is the leap. If you're close enough, dodge under and past him, but be careful because it sometimes breaks lock on. Otherwise, run backwards in an arc to punish the follow-up instead. The best way to bait this attack is to run towards him as he runs at you, which will make him do one of three things. Keep going, in which case just run around him to the left. Leap, or pull out the pew-pew and fit your body with its own personal ventilation system. Thanks. I wasted a lot of attempts on trying to dodge that move, until I remembered the power of Mist Raven. Nice try, I'm over here though. I didn't want to finish this fight until I felt like I had a good enough grasp of it, so I made a backup save, and even though I beat him after 70 attempts with no heals or resurrects left, I wasn't satisfied. So I kept going for another 30 or so attempts, until I had something I was happy enough with. Here are all the best bits. Lovely stuff. Grandad got a trendy new skin fade, I dusted Kuro in icing sugar, the Divine Child had a bad case of heartburn, and the world's most annoying game of Poker Man was finally over. Thanks so much for watching, guys. It really does mean the world to me. Please leave a like and sub so I can validate my existence, and I'll leave you with some words of wisdom from Basket Guy.
Basket.